Hello, I'm the One Nerd, and I've just been hacking away on something for the last few hours, 4 hours or so. And I've got it working, so I thought I'd share that. So in Twine, something that I think is quite often, people often wonder is it about, as well as with loading sounds and some of the issues that can come with that, people often wondered about loading in like 3D models, creating basic 3D scenes. So I decided today to experiment a bit to see if I can create something that would be useful in that regard. And I managed to get a template of sorts working that works within the Snowman format. So I thought I'd share that. Now, my solution, I don't know if it's necessarily the best. I don't know if it is the most efficient. I don't know if there is a cleverer way of doing it or a faster way of doing it, but after a few hours of experimenting around, this is more or less the only way I could get it working. Anyway, without further ado, I'm not going to go yabber on for too long. GitHub page up, so you can already check it out if you want. It's called 3D Loader Twine. Got a little GitHub page up here, so I'll just demo it quickly. So yeah, it's like I said, it's made using Snowman. This is just the entry page, shows you a bit of the features. So it has a responsive canvas. So the actual canvas itself resizes. So if it's in a mobile or tablet view, it's not going to be squished or squashed or too big. It loads a script tag on every single scene we want to use this though. So and you do have to change the model references if you want to change the model, for example, and there's a few other caveats. You really will need to know the basics of editing 3JS scripts and a little bit about 3JS to get the most of it out of it, but I'll try and cover some of that in the little code overview in a minute. And the other caveat is, like with if you're referencing local images or sounds, as with that, with 3D models you get cause issues unless you run your HTML file on a live server. So there's a live server link there provided so that you can actually test this out locally, though obviously you have to also export your actual Twine project out before it would actually work anyway, like with images and sound. So it's another thing to bear in mind. Anyway, let's give a quick example of it. So the examples I've done so far, I've only done a few hours on it, so I found one model to load in, but that's an actual GLB model which has been loaded in to the canvas, and it just gets rotated around infinitely. You can obviously change all the positionings, the colours. There's another example where the lighting's been changed, the background of the actual canvas itself has been changed. So there's that example too. And then finally, just a static model. Now I am going to obviously add something like so you can play animations of each model. Not got quite to that point yet, but that will come soon. Just to demonstrate as well. So if I change the size of the screen, I mean sometimes it's distorted a bit, but it will. So if I do, for example, responsive, you'll see it adapts to the screen size, the width. Go onto like an iPad, that's going to adapt. So it's responsive. That actually, surprisingly, was a bit awkward to figure out, to be honest, as well as a lot of the 3JS stuff. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the code, how this works, and how to actually set it up. Now that you've seen the example of how it works, then I'll show you that. Some of the settings, like there's a little bit of I think it's a bit stretched at the minute on the canvas renderer, so I might also optimize that at some point in the future. Like I said, it works by using the Snowman format, which is supposed to be, this is a minimal format that is supposed to allow for a lot of customization. Chatbook I ran into too many problems getting that to work, and likewise with Harlow. I got the model loading in, but just tons of issues with various things. Texture loading appears to be an issue sometimes with some models. This one seems fine. That's something we'll have to try and work on as well. I think it's Draco related, but I was having some issues with actually loading that up. So anyway, so let me just show you a few things. So obviously I've got the actual directory here for the working build in VS Code, and I've got the index.html, which obviously comes from Twine, and then the associated 3D files and assets. But that's all just the stuff that's actually hosted here. Really what you need to know is, so if you want to actually open this up and try and create something yourself in it, I'll go over what's going on. So we've got some custom style sheets, custom CSS, and some custom JavaScript. I'll go with the JavaScript first because it's really vital, otherwise it just won't work. So in the JavaScript, here we have this function load script, which just basically loads a script, and then we use that to load in the minified 3JS, which is the actual library that's used for displaying the WebGL content, the 3D content. Also the GLTF loader, which is used for loading in GLB files. At the minute, only supports GLB. You could probably do OBJ as well because it has an OBJ loader, but GLB is just an easier format to work with overall. And there's also orbit controls, but not really using that at the minute, but it's there anyway. So that load script is a function that's called here, accepting a URL that it loads. Okay, so this is how it's actually working. So this is just the menu page, so I won't show that. Let's open up one of the examples. So the load in and rotate, for example, we have a div element here called free container, and then this is, we have to put all this code on each page where we want to load in a different free scene, which, you know, is a bit convoluted, but it does work, so that's good. So basically all this code here is the code to use the GLTF loader to load in our model, create a new free scene, and then we also have some checks here, because obviously we're switching from scene to scene, right? We need it so that existing WebGL content is wiped. Now I've not really done many checks on this yet, I've only just created this today, but it also does check that it is free there, so if free isn't there it's going to return an error, because we're not going to get very far about that, but it does seem to work, so that's good. We've got the actual free scene being created with the usual camera and renderer settings, and then we're appending to that free container that renderer as a DOM element. Lighting, which is just then added, and obviously you can adapt and change all this to whatever you want. As an example there, one of the others, so I've set the background to black there, for example. You can set it to whatever. Most of the model loading occurs here. We're loaded in the GLTF loader, which is loaded in that script in the scripting section, and I explicitly set the path there, so it's robot GLB. Add it to the scene, set the positions, scaling, such. You can modify all this if you want. This is important. This controls resizing. It's important for responsiveness. And then this example, I just got the rotation that goes on and on and on. That's called every single frame there. And that's that basically. I mean, obviously you can do different things with it. So for example, on this one, it's just the same code. So if you're going to use this in your own projects, you just copy this block anytime you want to incorporate a 3D scene. Make sure you've got the div free container there, and it should work. You might have some model loading issues still. There's probably going to be some bugs with it still, but that should be a good starting point. So for modifying colours, let me just give an example of that. We've got green there for the ambient light instead of the white that was there before, which is the standard one. And I've also changed the background to blue, which you can see if I load it up here. That's just this one. So you can very easily do things like that, of course. You don't have to load in the same model every time, obviously. That's just something I've done in these examples. But because I was having a bit of trouble with sometimes with some models just loading texture blobs, you'll run into a lot of issues with cores, like I said, unless you do this. So you have to download an extension called Live Server, where you can run a different live server technology, but that will allow you to test it locally, right? So that's the local version. That should be pretty easy. You just go on VS Code, extensions, and you find Live Server. It's just a free one, so install it, and you go where you want your index.html file, open with Live Server, and that'll get you around the annoyances of local file hosting. So if I tried to open that just here, you'll see what happens. Nothing happens. If you go and inspect, we'll get an error message that it's been blocked by cores, because cores is the bane of all their existence. That's that really. You'll find it interesting if you want to if you want a ready-made basic solution for loading in some 3D models. It can be very useful for interactive fictions, creating your own. Not many interactive fictions made with Twine use 3D graphics, so that'll probably be really useful. Like I said, there's a lot to build on here. It's just a starting point, and you're completely free to just modify it to your heart's content. Best way to really do it at current, it's not its own format, would be to load in this. I need to change the name actually, because it's I just started with that as my experiment earlier, but I'll change the name of it. But yeah, you'll go into, you can just import it in as you would any Twine project. So you'd import in the HTML, and then you could roll with it, and you could not that one, you could just use some of these as a base. So you could use the examples, maybe duplicate a few of them, rename them, and delete them as you wish. But yeah, I hope that'll be useful to somebody. I think that's most of what I needed to cover done. Like I said, it's based on it's using the Snowman format. I have no idea if it would work with Chatbook, Harlow, or any other format off the top of my head. But of course, you can be free to try it out if you want. That's about it. I don't think there's really much more I need to cover. Oh, I'll look briefly at the CSS actually. So there's not much complexity there. So I'll just go with this big. I've added in a custom font, but you can obviously take that out as you want. Just the background settings. So I've added the background metal. You can take that out if you like, of course. Just doing that so you've got the option straight away at the box. Your standard customization of colours. This is probably interesting. Free containers for the actual viewport settings. And this does allow it to be responsive. Now you can make it bigger if you wanted. The viewport height, I just made it to 50%, so it's not too huge. And I've got some canvas settings there, and overrides. And then yeah, just your standard. These are just some random class editor for images, the logo, and TW story, which just modifies the colours of the formats. Passage. That's about it. So there's nothing too much going on. And the only real thing of interest is the ID for free container, which again will allow it to be responsive like we saw before, so that if I do this, it's gonna resize, right? So it's gonna resize on the fly, and if I flipped it around there, it's gonna do that. So it's always 100% or more or less that it needs to be. So if I went and viewed this on my phone, it's not gonna look terrible. It'll be fairly responsive. That looks a bit stretched, but you get the idea. It's not going to be too bad on most mobile or tablet displays, which is definitely a good thing. And like I said, that was actually a bit of a pain to get that to work. You'd be surprised. But yeah, that's that. I hope you find it useful. I won't make this too long. I will try and build on it as I go along as well. Yeah, that's it. Bye.